Good morning. It's Sunday, November 20th. And last week we had elections all around the country. And one of the places where elections were watched very closely was in Arizona, where Democrat Katie Hobbs won the governorship and Mike Kelly, a Democrat, won a seat in the Senate. And those were the election results that the general public all around this country were watching very closely. But something else very important was happening in that election that got very little attention from anybody. There was a referendum on the attention, an act that was being passed that will have major consequences in the state of Arizona. And this action that took place in Arizona was voted on positively by over 70% of the population. And this was a vote against dark money. Now, dark money is something that I have ranted about many, many times. That is a term that is used to identify campaign financing, where those people can give huge amounts of money anonymously, so that the general public doesn't know who is really supporting a given candidate. And in many, many cases, these candidates are supported by large corporations or billionaires like the Koch brothers, who have vested interests in the results of the campaigns. So one could say that this is a form of bribery, and they would not be wrong. There are 3 other states that have such a referendum: Alaska, Montana, and Maine. So if you give $5,000 to a nonprofit that uses the money on political advertising and spends more than $50,000 on a state campaign or ballot proposition, must publicly disclose their name. So this act is targeted at those that give political contributions. If the money's not to be used for anything political, then nobody cares about who gave the money. So this is targeting the billionaires around the state of Arizona who spend money to influence the election results in that state. And it's funny, but Arizona is not the only state that has this act in place. There are 3 other states that have acts in place targeted at dark money donors. And those are Alaska, Montana, and Maine. So Arizona is not the first, but they have joined this group. Now, this was not a shot in the dark. Terry Goddard, who was a former Arizona Attorney General, spearheaded the ballot measure. And that's what he told the people over a phone interview. And then he has been fighting this fight for over 10 years. And this is not the first time that this has been attempted to get on the ballot, but it has been discarded for various other reasons over the course of the 10-year period, right? Because obviously the big money is against anything like this going on. And don't forget that the Citizens United decision, which caused all of this problem, was rendered by the Supreme Court in 2010. When they decided that a corporation was a person and that nobody had to know who was giving this money. And that has been a bane on our public elections for a long, long time. There's too much money spent on public elections. It's estimated that this election in 2022, over $16 billion was spent in campaign money. $16 billion. Think about what you could do with $16 billion instead of electing officials who can't compromise and bring this nation forward. So this bill or act or measure is designed to expose the funders of the dark money front groups that have proliferated since the Citizens United decision in 2010. Since then, there's been an explosion of anonymous money, spending by a tiny but an extraordinarily wealthy group of people. Wealthy donors that are spending enormous amounts of money to have the elections go their way. I think we were fortunate in this year's elections. Money that was spent on poor candidates went to waste. I think that was a fortunate thing that happened this year. But it probably won't continue forever. So let me tell you who opposed this measure. Leading the opposition was a group known as the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. And according to past financial records that were disclosed for some reason, that particular fund, that particular free enterprise club, has been the recipient of funds from the billionaire Koch brothers, the Koch family, from their organization called Americans for Prosperity. Now we know that the Koch brothers have been very conservative, and we know the causes that they have financed over the years. And they are an example of what the billionaires in this country choose to do. There are 800 billionaires in the United States, and probably only a small percentage of them act in anonymity. And maybe many of them are giving their money for good causes and they just don't want people to know what's going on. But I think a lot of this black money, this dark money is hidden, and it comes through these organizations, and sometimes it passes through 3 different organizations before it gets to the place where it's going to be used. And that's a disgrace. If you want to give money to a cause, why not just stand up and say so? Yes, it will expose you. And yes, you won't like that exposure. So don't give the money. Maybe that would help this country if campaign funding was reduced to some small amount of money. As I've said many times before, why do we take 2 years of campaigning or 3 years of campaigning to elect an official? Why can't it be a 90-day period? Get it over with. You got work to do. In many cases, if you look at our Congress, not so much the Senate, but if you look at the Congress, as soon as they're elected, they're on the campaign trail because they're only there for 2 years. And as long as they're getting this dark money, they can continue acting like that. So this was a great event that took place in Arizona, and it should have gotten a lot more publicity than it did. And I'll leave you with those thoughts this morning. I've said enough about it. Dark money needs to be erased. Take care. Have a great day.